the British government faces mounting criticism for its handling of forced labor concerns surrounding solar panel manufacturing in China, specifically impacting the state-owned Great British Energy, GBE. Accusations of turning a blind eye to slavery are swirling as ministers prepare to whip Labour MPs against an amendment designed to strengthen legal protections and prevent taxpayer money from funding products manufactured using forced labor. This controversial move has ignited a fierce political debate, pitting the government's assurances against growing public unease and opposition demands for greater transparency and accountability. The amendment in question seeks to incorporate explicit legal safeguards into GBE's operations, ensuring that its investments in solar energy projects scrupulously avoid any association with forced labor practices, particularly those prevalent in the Xinjiang region of China, where Uyghur Muslims are subjected to systematic human rights abuses. The government, however, insists that existing measures adequately address this critical issue. Their defense rests primarily on the activities of a solar task force chaired by Energy Secretary Eid Miliband, which they claim is already effectively tackling the problem. This assertion is met with skepticism by opposition parties and human rights organizations who argue that a proactive, legally mandated approach is necessary to guarantee genuine protection against the use of forced labor. The upcoming vote on Tuesday promises a dramatic showdown. While the government's whip will likely compel Labour MPs to vote against the amendment, whispers of potential concessions suggest a behind-the-scenes scramble to mitigate the political fallout. This internal maneuvering highlights the government's precarious position, balancing the need to appear decisive on the issue of human rights with the potential political cost of openly defying its own MPs and public pressure. The government's strategy appears to be one of damage control, attempting to portray their existing actions as sufficient, while simultaneously attempting to quell growing public anger and criticism from human rights groups. Housing Minister Matthew Pennycook, in a preemptive move on Tuesday morning, attempted to reassure the public and preempt further criticism, stating he could guarantee that government-procured solar panels would not be sourced from Uyghur forced labor in China. However, this statement has been met with further calls for transparency and independent verification, with critics demanding clear, auditable processes to ensure the government's claims are verifiable and credible. The lack of publicly available detailed information regarding the sourcing of solar panels and the exact mechanisms employed by the Miliband-led task force fuels suspicion and strengthens opposition calls for robust legislative action. The core of the debate hinges on the fundamental question of responsibility and accountability. Is the government's reliance on existing mechanisms and assurances sufficient to prevent taxpayer money from unwittingly funding human rights abuses? Or is the proposed amendment a necessary step to establish clear legal obligations and enhance the transparency required to prevent the perpetuation of forced labor? The upcoming vote will offer a crucial insight into the government's priorities and its commitment to upholding ethical standards in its procurement practices. The international implications are also significant, with the government's response setting a potential precedent for future engagements with nations implicated in human rights violations. The failure to act decisively could damage the UK's international standing and its commitment to human rights, fueling accusations of hypocrisy and undermining its efforts to promote ethical global trade practices. The debate extends far beyond the immediate political maneuvering, encompassing fundamental questions of morality, global responsibility, and the integrity of the UK's commitment to human rights. The coming days will be pivotal in determining the UK's stance on forced labor and the effectiveness of its efforts to combat this global scourge.